As an educator, I've been hearing a lot about Title IX. Do I need to know about this? What do I need to know about this?
Yeah, you probably have. Title IX has been in the news a lot, but it's been almost all related to higher ed institutions. It has come to P12 schools as well. Title IX is going to be an increasing situation that you're going to have to deal with in your school. Again, the most recent thing locally was the issue of the transgender student at Fairfield High School. That issue falls under Title IX. You may have also seen that there was a ruling down in Texas, that was in the local press, saying that the federal government's insistence that transgender students be able to use the same bathroom with which the gender with which they identify was struck down. Bottom line, Title IX is something that you're going to have to worry about. What is Title IX? Title IX falls under the Civil Rights Acts. It's patterned after another law under those acts called Title VI. Title VI was passed back in 1964 specifically to try to deal with past discrimination against African Americans. And it had certain sanctions against institutions that would discriminate based on race. Title IX then was passed in the 70s, and it deals with gender. It's identical to Title VI, exact same wording, except that no one can discriminate based on the sex of an individual. And the first thing that we saw the most is it impact sports teams. That we started to have more female sports teams. If there was a male sports team, there then also needed to be a female sports team. But in the last several years, because of what are called Dear Colleague letters written by the Office of Civil Rights, also referred to as OCR, which is the federal agency that regulates and governs over all Title IX, all title claims, including Title IX. Because of articles they've written, things have really stepped up. They have been much more prescriptive as to how school districts and institutions of higher education are supposed to deal with, especially complaints of sexual assault or sexual harassment. Way back when, the courts decided that sexual harassment was a type of gender discrimination, and Title IX is the federal law under which you sue if you feel that you've been discriminated against because of gender. It includes not only staff or teachers harassing students or assaulting students, it's also student on student. And this is where it can become very problematic for local school districts. So what can you do about this? You can have competent counsel with whom you have constant communication to make sure that you are always up to date on what is coming out of the OCR, that your policies are always up to date, and that you have a good way to address each and every time that an individual student feels that they have been discriminated against because of their gender, whether it is because of their orientation, their gender identity, a sexual assault, a sexual harassment, not being equally represented in sports, even down to, there was a case out of Indiana that it was found that a district was in violation of Title IX because the boys' basketball games were always on Friday and the girls were either on Thursday or Saturday, unpreferred game days for that area of the state.
So if a principal's concerned that sexual harassment is occurring in their school, what would Timmerman law offices provide for them to make it easier for them to identify what is an issue and what is not?
Well, one of the problems with school districts is that usually the principal hears about it first. But legal representation is expensive, and that's why Timmerman law offices offers school districts the ability to have, we call it the UPC plan, for unlimited phone calls. For a set fee per month, it's easy to budget for school districts. Their administrators would have unlimited phone access to Timmerman law offices in order to ask those questions, because it's crucial to ask the question before the problem blows up. Because if you can get the advice before something happens, or when you just suspect, or when you worry. And this means not just the superintendent and board president, but also the building principals. Then you can avoid it and ultimately avoid additional legal costs. And I don't fault school districts. It's expensive, and they're working on ever smaller budgets. And so they have to be very, very careful with how they spend their dollars as regarding legal representation.
And being able to budget for legal expenses.
Precisely.
Much
And that's
better.
one of the things that the UPC, because they know that that's going to be a line item every month.